Howdy, my name is Chris Raymer. I'm a Recovery Community Director at La Hacienda Treatment Center, and most of y'all know me, the son of a gun, and it's good to be here with you. A few of us got together and started talking under the circumstances of all this crazy stuff going on out there. I know a lot of you guys are hunkered down someplace, not hugging anybody and watching yourself, and this isolation stuff with alcoholics and addicts is a tough deal. And cool part is there's lots of online meetings popping up, and there's a lot of good stuff happening out there too. But we thought we'd do a little workshop for you, a little short deal, maybe like one every week, and just kind of run through the steps, and maybe talk about some other recovery related stuff that y'all might be interested in. I'm kind of here at your disposal. We're going to have at the bottom of this, we'll put my email address here at La Hacienda, and also my phone number. And if any of y'all, after this is over, you view it and you've got some questions, or you'd like to make comments or suggestions for future little workshops, let me know, holler at me, and I'd be more than glad to answer those questions and just to be helpful any way we can. Guys, we don't want to, this isolation stuff, like I said again, is not good for any of us, and this probably does me more good than it does y'all. So I'm just delighted to be here. I want to mention real quick, because this is a treatment center, I want to make sure that we understand the traditions with the 12-step fellowships. We don't want to get under anybody's skin with association. The Tradition 6 asks us not to associate our name with some of these 12-step fellowships, and we don't want to do that. But the general 12-step stuff is what we're going to be talking about. But I also will probably be mentioning, as I already have, treatment centers. And of course, in a regular AA meeting or CA or DAA or any of the other NA, you don't do that. And so we don't want to be in violation of the traditions, guys, because we know people are really hyper vigilant about that. So this is just like for us and the alumni. It's if you want to go post it out and send it to people, I'd rather you didn't, unless they're other alumni, and then get them involved. Because we'd love to hear from as many of you as we can, and this will be fun, guys. I'm sure I'll make some mistakes on this. This is certainly not a professional recording. It will not look anything like a TED Talk, but it might help some of us review some cool stuff and keep us entertained for 30 minutes or so. So I'm grateful you're here. Again, don't forget to get the phone number and my email address off so we can visit. There's an old quote out there somebody said a long time ago. It says, when setting out on a journey, do not seek advice from those who have never left home. I love that. Because what happens a lot of times is we get a lot of people in our 12-step fellowships that they may talk a lot about certain things, but if you visit with them a little bit, you may find out they haven't ever even done it. I'm not taking a shot at anybody, but I know some of the fellowships that I attend, there are people in the rooms that have never worked a step. But they've all got opinions about it. They all want to share about it. So I'm just here, y'all know my story better than me sometimes. I know some of you. I was years sitting in the rooms of our 12-step meetings not getting what I needed. There's a lot of wonderful people and a lot of kind sharing and a lot of war story stuff, and it just, I don't know, there's no more love on the earth than you can find in any 12-step meeting. I'm not taking shots, but there weren't any big books in the rooms that I was trying to get sober at, as I remember, and certainly we're never qualified. So this is kind of something that we're going to kind of do. I got a lot of people out there. I heard a guy in a meeting not long ago just said, you're a member of this, so-and-so fellowship if you say you are, and you're an alcoholic if you say you are. And, the first part was right. You're a member of AA, NA, DA, CAA. You're a member of any of these fellowships. If you say you are, you are. But guys, in order to be an alcoholic or a drug addict, there has to be certain symptoms involved. There's not a bunch of different kinds of alcoholics or different kinds of drug addicts. You either have the symptoms or you don't. Pretty clear. In 87, after a stupid suicide attempt, I went to AA early 90s trying to save a marriage, and I'm in and out of the rooms, but I didn't get a sponsor. I didn't have a home group. I'm just, whatever's convenient, I'm popping in and dumping my stuff of how bad my day is, and terrible. But I'm not staying sober, and I ended up after that suicide attempt, ended up back in a room up in North Texas with a little group, and they were all carrying big books, and they all had a little busted up book in front of them, and a bunch of old timers grabbed me when I got in there, and after the meeting they sat down and they asked me if they could qualify me. Now, I didn't know what that was. It was a little shady. And it's 7 o'clock at night, and I'm ready to go home. I'm sleepy, and so, I'm detoxing, for heaven's sakes. And I said I'd sit with him for a few minutes. He said, Chris, this won't take 15 minutes. Just sit with me, and let's find out if you really are an alcoholic or not. And I said, well, I know I'm an alcoholic. But you see, he stopped me cold, and he said, you know what? If you knew you were an alcoholic, you'd do this work. The truth is, I call myself an alcoholic for the last 10 years, but I don't really believe I'm an alcoholic. Can y'all relate? There's not an alcoholic out there that ever believes he's going to have a drunk driving charge or hurt somebody in a car wreck or come out of a blackout in a bad spot. I mean, we all think that our case is going to be different until it happens. And then it happens and we start moving stuff around. That's a little issue man up here, always draw him up there for me more than y'all. With all the little X's, we think if we change all that external, we're going to be okay. And that's what I spent most of my years in AA doing. If I could just make more money, if I could just finally get married, if I could just buy a house, if we could just do, I wouldn't drink so much. And I did all of that stuff and kept drinking and doing drugs. And so the truth is, when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't anymore believe I was an alcoholic than the man in the moon. Every time I would sit in a meeting and listen to you tell your terrible, horrible stories, your stories sometimes are worse than the person sitting next to you. And if that's the case, it can be kind of scary to that person. I'm not knocking stories. I get people cranky about that all the time. I'm glad I have a story. I can share it on a Friday night in a speaker meeting or in a 12-step call. I can do that. But guys, just sitting in a meeting trying to identify with somebody, there's a lot of people out there that are alcoholics that never blacked out. There are a lot of people in Alcoholics Anonymous that never had drunk driving charges. And every time you talk about that in a meeting, and I'm not saying don't do it, I'm just saying pay attention. You're not going to scare anybody into recovery because it doesn't work. Nobody believes they're ever going to do that crazy thing you did. That's just the nature of the beast. And God, in hindsight, I did most of it, but nobody ever believes it. So I think if you hear this little piece, your story is not going to scare me into recovery. My own story didn't scare me into recovery. It got me into the rooms, but these two guys that got me after the meeting and sat down and they opened a big book and they qualified me. They actually showed me in the book where the symptoms were listed, so I can see what the problem was. And I got to tell you guys, I never can explain it well enough. I don't know what the emotions were when I left that meeting and I drove back to my little apartment, and I was really tearful because I realized for the first time that I was a real alcoholic. I had all these other psychiatric disorders. I'm on all kinds of medications. But at the end of the day, what it turned out to be was untreated alcoholism. And that may be different for you, but for me, that's what it was. And I owe my life to those guys, and I got to tell you, they're both passed away now, but I got to tell you, it's my prayer that every alcoholic or drug addict enters into a 12-step fellowship and goes to a meeting where you've got some caring people there that understand that we don't really understand what this is all about. The idea that if I just go to enough meetings, eventually I'll get this is absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry if you disagree. Meetings are so important. I'm missing mine like a big dog. But I'm telling you, folks, my life was changed because a couple of guys slowed me down and qualified me and helped me see my truth. What's your truth based on your experience? Not what your head's telling you. My little head never shuts up. What's your truth based on your experience? Because that's the key. And it may be different than everybody else. And so some of y'all that sat in my big book stuff at LAHA, First Step, if I get a chance to do that. Some of y'all, I've mentioned this, and it's like, well, if I'm listening to this, what happens if somebody figures out they're not an alcoholic? Well, how cool would that be? It says, once and for all, let's get off dead center here. If we find out you're an alcoholic, we can help you, or a drug addict. If we find out you're not, we can help you find your truth around that, help you get someplace where you can get the help you need. The people that we take advantage of in our fellowships and in treatment and therapy are the people that we allow to stay confused about this. Because guys, this is black and white. You either are an alcoholic or you're not. You're either a drug addict or you're not. You're either a combination of both. I mean, we can be addicted to a bunch of different stuff. A lot of us are. Some of us qualify for whole bunches of 12-step fellowships. And I'm grateful they're out there because I do belong to a few. So our chief responsibility, y'all hear me talk about it a lot. There's a little, As Bill Sees It, it's got a little quote in there that Bill Wilson did in a letter in 1942. And he said, our chief responsibility to the newcomer is an adequate presentation of the program. And I just think part of this, the journey begins with qualification. Bill Wilson talks, I forget, guys, don't hold me to it, 3 or 4 places in the book where he talks about the different types of drinkers. But on the bottom of page 20 and the top of page 21, it talks about moderate drinkers, hard drinkers, and then he uses the sentence, he says, but what about the real alcoholic? Y'all check it out if you got a book in front of you. But what about the real alcoholic? Now that's Bill Wilson's words, because I got to tell you, you go into any 12-step meeting out there and say, you know, my name's Chris Raymer, I'm a real alcoholic, and somebody will take exception with it. You know, they'll laugh, oh, you think you're special. Yeah. Sometimes I feel alone in some of these groups when people, it's like, buddy, if you thought you were a real alcoholic, you'd be doing the work and helping others and doing the things that we're asked to do. So I just think it's important. My life changed when I figured out what the heck was wrong with me. And I owe those guys a huge, huge debt of gratitude. One of our greatest commodity, I've heard it said, is time. And I got to tell you, I was meditating on it the other day, I think our greatest commodity is honesty. I mean, we all got time, and I got to tell you guys, if we have the ability to be honest, Bill Wilson just beats it to death in the first paragraph on how it works. He talks about if we have the ability to be honest, in that first paragraph, he says we can get sober. It doesn't say anywhere that you got to be particularly good looking, thank goodness, or smart, thank goodness, you know, or have a lot of money, thank goodness. It just says if you can be honest, and I don't mean just cash register honest with people around you, but I mean honest with yourself. I mean to look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself the truth. And that's difficult for some of us. It certainly was for me. I'd lied to myself so long and blamed everybody else around me for why I continued to drink. But deep down, I knew what the truth was. There was something wrong. And the only prerequisite that we need in order to do this is to have that ability to be honest with ourselves. Poor folks like psychopaths and stuff, I suppose there are psychiatric disorders where that's impossible. I'm so sorry for those people. Luckily, I haven't met too many in all the years I've been doing this. I've been working in the industry for about 27 years, and I got sober finally on November 13th, 1987, and I'm just so grateful. But if we can move on from that and just look at if we can be honest and just y'all weigh this out, you know, does this ring true for me and what we're going to talk about here? Bill Wilson talks about the first step in the actual steps are outlined in the first 100 pages. Yeah, and y'all can count them. I mean, give or take a few pages, but not the first 100 pages. The first 60 of those pages are the first step. The next 11 steps are outlined in the next 40 pages. I hear people in our rooms all the time talk about, well, you know, there's no more step more important than the other. You know, I disagree. I think that first step is really important because that's the step that catapults us into the rest of the work. If you're not convinced you're one of us as an alcoholic or an addict, you're not going to do this work. Everybody says they will. Oh, I'm going to work the steps anyway. You're not going to do it. About the time they ask you to sit down with a piece of paper and start doing a resentment inventory, you'll stop. I've watched it 1,000 times. So let's see if we can qualify you. We'll get started this week, and next week we can pick up and do the mental piece. These pages from doctor's opinion up to page 23 talks about the physical craving. And from 23 to 43, we talk about the mental obsession. Big book is going to get real clear. It talks about the mental obsession. Main problem centers in our mind rather than our body, and I couldn't agree more. But we really got to look at this physical piece, guys, because it's a phenomenon that sets us apart from everybody else out there. There's a great book out there I read long ago. I'll give you the title if you email me, but I don't have the permission to use it in here, but it talks specifically about, he says, we're not different from other people. We're different from other drinkers. Did y'all get it? There's a world out there that wants to make us paint this picture that we're all goofy because we're alcoholic and addict. I'm going to tell you something, folks. Some of the finest, sharpest people I ever met were people in recovery. We're not goofy. Come on. There's a few of us that are absolutely goofy. All right, there's some fruitcakes out there in recovery land, but most of us are as good as they can be. Sharp, well, I mean, just good eggs. And the thing that separates us, though, is how we react to alcohol. What happens when I put alcohol or drugs in my system that differs from other people? And a lot of you guys, some of you guys have been around people that are normal drinkers. I've got normal drinkers in my family, and they still freak us out. I got a twin brother that's in the program with me. Some of y'all know him, and he's a good egg. But he and I drank a lot. My father was an alcoholic, sweetest, kindest man you'd ever come across. And he was the best, let me just say that, and worked his butt off to put food on our table, and I don't know, mother was just absolute delight. She was a professional artist for years, and raised us. I mean, we were on the front row of the Baptist church every time the door was open, and we had a great upbringing here in the hill country, for heaven's sakes, and absolutely loved it. But the piece I got to get you to see is that I have two sisters, a half sister and a younger sister. They've never had a problem with alcohol. They can sit down and do maybe a little alcohol or maybe smoke a joint or something and not have a problem with it at all. They do a little bit and then that's it. No, I'm finished. My little sister's notorious for it. No, I don't want another drink. I'm starting to feel it. And I just yeah, me too. Well, I don't understand. My reaction to alcohol is different than her reaction. It became quite apparent early on because I would start drinking with her, and she would stop at a certain point when she started feeling a little lightheaded and whatever, a little drunk, and she'd start feeling. She said, "I'm going to stop," and I'm feeling the same way, but my head says, "I got to have one more. I got to have another drink," and oh my gosh, you know, that's what separates. My twin brother, again, like I said, he was doing the same thing. So there was a guy I got my picture. Some of y'all remember this pic. It's up in the upper dining room, but I use it. This is Dr. Silkworth. I hope you can see it from on the camera. But Dr. Silkworth was the neurologist. He was at Towns Hospital for 16 years. He was the cat that helped Bill Wilson get sober. Bill had been to treatment. Varying archivists will give you 3. Most of them will say 4 times. On his 4th time was when Ebby took him, and he got detoxed finally, and had his spiritual experience with Ebby, working what was then going to be the steps with him. But Dr. Silkworth started seeing some similarities with alcoholics. Now remember, Towns Hospital at the time, we didn't have treatment centers on every corner like we have now. And so what happened was, if you were English royalty and you had a problem with alcohol, you would come to Towns Hospital. You'd get on a slow boat and come over and go to treatment. If you were a little gutter snipe on the street in New York trying to come off heroin, you would go to Towns Hospital to get help. And they all went to the same place. And Dr. Silkworth started to seeing this similarity between all of them, which was the phenomena called craving that the book talks about in his doctor's opinion. Wonderful man. Thank God for Dr. Silkworth. He's buried up on the Jersey Shore, and he was a wonderful guy. I would love to have met him. But he paints this pretty clear picture that with alcoholics and drug addicts, once we start, we can't control how much we put in our system. But he uses the term every time, so I want to make clear, because it's not saying that every time we drink we lose control. There's this little thing called progression. I won't draw it up here, but you know, in the progression of the illness, and it progresses differently with different folks. I talk about this in family lecture a lot, but You can't tell by looking at a guy how far his illness has progressed. Everybody would be looking at the old guys like me and saying, well, your illness has progressed really far. But we've all known people who are young adults who are end-stage alcoholic at 19 or 20. You don't have to wait till you're 60 to get there. It can happen early on. It travels really fast in some people. It travels slower in other people. I know people that successfully drank for 30, 40 years, and then the wheels came off towards the end of their life, and things got really goofy. But had you known the questions to ask, you could have diagnosed them early on. They were just able at certain times to hold it together. It's the piece I really want to make clear, because so many of you you get sideways with the idea, because every time I drink I don't lose control. Me neither. Like I said again, that's end-stage alcoholism. It happens to some of us very obviously early on, but a lot of us it doesn't happen. I can name you hundreds of times if I thought about it, where I got a 6-pack of beer after work, drank 2 beers, and in front of the TV, and went to bed. And the next day, maybe I'd have a couple more. And then the third day, I had a date and started drinking right after work, and ended up going to get a 12-pack and got so drunk, I made a fool of myself at the date. That was not my intention, but the craving at that time was not satisfied with 2 drinks like it was the previous 2 nights. The craving was satisfied with 15 or 16 beers. I mean, and sometimes, it's just different for different people. So don't get caught up in this deal. Well, I don't drink to black out. A lot of us didn't. A lot of us don't. So that's not, the book never implies that either. So we'll just move on. At certain times, we're talking about this control piece. I put it in my system. The questions are, can you guarantee me how much you're going to drink every time? I can't. I got this little target up here, guys. When this craving kicks in, this control, this is about craving. A lot of the fellowships use those words as interchangeably. Craving happens once you put it in your system. I'll differentiate now, because I'll repeat it to next week when we get together again, talk about the mental obsession. This mental obsession piece, that's around this word called choice. The obsession is what ends up killing alcoholics and addicts, but it happens before I put the drink in my system. Obsession. Once I put it in my system, the craving kicks in. You got that? Okay. This is why we have to be really careful, guys, real quick, with what you put in your system as alcoholics and addicts. So many little addicts we watch out there leave treatment and end up relapsing around the alcohol, because they don't have a problem with alcohol, because they liked drugs better, and but they leave and they put alcohol in their system because they think they can drink. The obsession's kicking their butt, because if they're not working the steps, that's what's going to happen. And they pick up a drink. The drink will trigger this craving, and they'll not like the alcohol, and they'll go back to the drugs. Most alcoholics end up relapsing around prescription medication. Lots and lots and lots of them. Again, because of the same thing, craving. They pick up a joint, it triggers the craving, and they're off to the stupid races. Guys, doctors' lectures have some great audio out there you can get that explains it a lot better than me. But you got to be careful for any over-the-counter medications. Alcohol in food. I don't put anything on my system, perfumes, colognes, or that kind of stuff. I don't put any of that stuff on my skin. Anything with alcohol in it that absorbs through the pores of my skin or in through my mouth can trigger that craving. It won't take a lot. I'm not worried that you're going to go drink a bottle of perfume. I'm worried that it'll trigger the craving and you'll get thirsty. Because once the craving's triggered, you're going to go do something stupid 9 times out of 10. Just been our experience. Detox centers understand that. This is why we detox you. When you first get here, you come into SCU down here, and that's what you do. You're detoxing. We're getting this stuff out of your system so that we're not triggering that. We're not triggering the craving. The question is, I want you to look at, I want to stay on symptoms. This is a little target I draw up. Some of y'all have seen me do it before, but this little happy spot. All of y'all know these little areas of the combination of alcohol and drugs, perhaps, whatever you can do. When alcohol's working and I put the right amount of stuff in me, I can I'm okay. This is the little cool zone right here. If I could drink a couple of drinks, 3 drinks every night, whatever, and get right here, that's okay. Because guys, I got to tell you, you can't touch me in that spot. I can just get right. Y'all know that word, right? A lot of people don't, you know. I'm not drinking to get drunk. I hear people all the time talk about, I drink to escape. Okay, I don't. I drink to get right. I drink to get comfortable in my skin. That's how I started downstream after I'd stirred up a hornet's nest, I suppose. I suppose escape was a part of it. But for most of this, it's just like we can hit this target. Most normal drinkers, my little sister, again, she can hit this target every time she has a drink. My older sister, they just don't overdrink. Ever. I could drink like this for a while, and every once in a while I'd get outside this little target. Finally, somebody would come and talk to me about it, and you know, usually a girlfriend or something back in the day, or an employer would sit down and say, man, you got kind of out there last night. What happened? And I just tell them, you know, I just had a little bit too much to drink. Well, you know, you might want to consider not doing that anymore. And you're right, absolutely correct. I need to stop that. And I try to reel it back in. I'd come back, and maybe a couple of days later, I'd have a couple of drinks, and I'm just going to drink 2 a night. And then the next night is I'm just going to drink 3 a night. but I'm still hitting in here. And then all of a sudden, you know, there's that day, a week later, 10 days later, whenever, and you get so far outside the target, you're not even on the target anymore. You're way over here. This is when you really made a fool of yourself at that company picnic or you know, whatever. You had a drunk driving charge, or you got in trouble or whatever, and you're back remorseful, all hungover. I'm never going to do that again because I'm going to really watch it this time. Yeah. And you stop drinking for a short period of time, and that stupid obsession kicks in and starts telling you that you can do it again. And here we go one more time. Again, next week we'll talk more about that. But you put this stuff back in your system, and the craving gets triggered, and now if you're stupid, you realize that you won't hit outside that target if you don't drink. Got that, my buddy in town that always says it in a meeting, he says, and remember, if you don't drink the first one, you won't get drunk. Well, no kidding. I mean, the problem is with me is I can't not drink the first one. This is the death knell. If you are physically suffer from this lack of control around alcohol, at that particular point where it's like being allergic to a food, just find out, okay, I can't control it sometimes. You little dope fiends in here, just ask yourself the question. I got to tell you, how many times did you put alcohol in your system and that led you to the drugs? I mean, I've seen it a gabillion times, but seeing that, if you still put it in your system, then we have what we call alcoholism or drug addiction. You got to have both symptoms, physical craving, mental obsession, to qualify to be an alcoholic or a drug addict. If you don't, you don't. Just a lot of people out there, you know, they find out they're allergic to a particular food and they just don't put it in their system anymore. This phenomenon of craving is the key piece that separates us from all the other drinkers out there. If you can control it every time, then you got no worry. You're just maybe a little fruitcake and need some help. I don't know. I hope that you find out in these little talks that you find out that you're actually one of us, because we can help you. And I don't mean necessarily just treatment. I mean, there's help out there for alcoholism and drug addiction. You can recover from that. Mention this real quick, guys. I've got a couple minutes left with you. I introduce myself from the podium as a recovered alcoholic or addict in the meetings that I'm in, because I want people to understand that Bill Wilson is making a very clear point that you can absolutely recover from this. You don't have to be a prisoner to that craving or that prisoner to this mental obsession. You can get taken to a place where it ceases to be a problem. You don't even give it a second thought. And I'm so grateful that I got well in these trying times. I'm glad that's one thing I don't have to worry about. And neither will you. I know I'm talking to a bunch of people that have had spiritual experiences, and you're recovered, and I'm honored to know you. And our job now is to go out there and help some other little knuckleheads. I've said this to probably every patient that's ever come through in all my years of working here over the time. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, folks, friends, I touched on it when I first started talking, but I want to finish up with this. I've got this little head that tells me, even at 32 years sober sometimes, that tells me that I don't need anybody, that I'm okay. And sometimes the noose around our neck, especially with sobriety under our belt, is this idea that my case starts to become different than everybody else's. And I'm going to tell you, Bill Wilson was crystal clear in a bunch of his writings I can connect you to. Whether I'm a day sober or 32 years sober, I need you. I need people around me that are going to help me stay on the path and encourage me. And I guess if I see one big mistake, I watch so many people that leave treatment and don't get engaged. I know we've got y'all doing a lot of stuff when you leave here, and you got IOPs and continuing care and therapy, and you know, you got to get back to work. I mean, you got a lot on your plate. Don't get overwhelmed with it. You know, just do what you can do. But you got to find some folks that you can lean on. Find that little home group, and you're going to hear me talk about this every time we lecture, every time we do a little talk. We're gonna visit about it. But find you a little home group where you love the people in the group, where you dig what they're doing, you love their format. If you can't, then start one. But you get you 3 or 4 people around you, or 60 people, it doesn't matter, all on the same page. The big book says we build the fellowship we crave. We get the folks around us that are going to be supportive of us. And I encourage you folks, in these trying times, I know we're isolated. Y'all guys, get in front of your little computer and you can email me all day long if you want to. Email, I'll send you archival material, history stuff, tradition stuff. I mean, anything that you want to do, I can send it to you. Call us on the phone. We've got a bunch of people that work in the alumni department here. They're available all the time too. You got the numbers. If you need them, email me and I'll give them to you. But you can call, check in. If you're having a bad day, lean on somebody. If you can't get your home group because they've closed it down, there's a lot of that going on here in the Hill Country. I understand that, but you're never alone. You got a whole bunch of people up here at this facility that are going to bend over backwards to help you. We don't stop loving you when you chip out and discharge from this place. You're a part of us forever. And I guarantee you there'll be people watching this that were working here, that were patients here in 1993 when I first came to work here. And they're still a part of our community. They're still a part of us. And we want y'all to stay connected. Okay? All right, guys. Thanks so much. I'll see y'all next week. Thanks.